Everything smells good until the butt shows up. It's probably not what you think. The but represents unexpected limitations, exceptions, exclusions, tactics that the insurance company uses against you, the consumer. And we want to expose that today, unpack it, give you, the viewer, a multitude of different things that you can do and be aware of when it comes to your insurance policy. Let's talk for a minute about what insurers don't want you to know and how it affects your rights as a consumer. Joining us today is Drew Plischke. He is the Director of Client Insurance Reconciliation for Gold Coast Auto Body out in Chicago. Drew, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Eric. I'm
Man,
humbled to be here with you today.
so glad that you are here. And we're going to kind of talk a little more about Gold Coast Auto Body and what's going on in your neck of the woods a little bit later. But let's set the table by explaining the premise of what you and I are going to talk about. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that there is a big but in the middle of our room. The but represents unexpected limitations, exceptions, exclusions, tactics that the insurance company uses against you, the consumer. And we want to kind of expose that today, unpack it, give you, the viewer, a multitude of different things that you can do and be aware of when it comes to your insurance policy. Did I get that pretty right, Drew?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So you are an industry expert when it comes to both consumer and insurance. Your title says reconciliation. What does that mean?
So what that means is that we reconcile our repair bills directly with the consumer versus the insurance carrier. However, we're engaged with the carrier because of the laws and our authorization forms, so that we're providing information to a carrier in good faith because we understand that our customer is going through an insurance claims process. What's often not told, though, is that those things are separated, and it creates a lot of confusion for the consumer.
We're going to talk about why the driving public doesn't know very much at all about their insurance policies. We're also going to cover why insurance companies try to steer you into their own preferred shops. And then, if you stick with us, we'll show you where the but shows up and what it means to you. All right, so Drew, let's start with this. Why does the driving public know so little when it comes to what their actual policy says?
Wow, that's a great question. And I think there's a lot of layers to that, Eric. First, I think that the first thing is there's a huge lack of education in many different spectrums. But today we're focused on the consumer. So there's a big lack of education as it relates to the consumer and what they truly know about their insurance policy. The reason that we know this is because we've see people coming into our service aisle every day. And I'm going to say it's high 90 percentile that know this, right? They know who they're insured by. They know what their deductible is, and they know if they have rental coverage. And that's really kind of the extent of their knowledge. Even though their policy could be anywhere from 50 to 60 pages long.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of questions as it relates to what you just said. The first one is, Do they really know if they have rental insurance? Because in my experience, many of them, when we ask about that, it's the first time they've ever even heard of it.
Yeah, so there you go. So something as basic as a rental coverage in the policy is unknown. Eric, look, man, I get people that come into our shop, they don't even know who they're insured by. And
Wow.
and you know, that's the truth. Um and look, that typically is something like this. My husband handles the insurance, and I have the wife. Or my mom handles the insurance and I have the daughter,
Yeah.
right? And so they don't even know who they're insured by. But I know that back in the day, you had insurance cards, right,
Yeah.
that you carry with you. Now they're in your phone. That information is right there for you, right? It's
Yeah.
it's simple.
Yeah.
Typically, what's happening, Eric, is the insurance carrier is only sharing one document of the policy, and it's called the deck page.
Right. The declarations
Um,
page.
the declaration page, and they're
Yeah.
not showing the full policy.
Right.
And I want you to know that I do believe seriously that that's kind of part of the setup.
Well, that leads me to my second question. You said, uh, many of them are just not educated. And I'm wondering if they are miseducated, that the storyline that they receive from their agent who negotiates the deal, and then the company that sends out the Dex page, right?
Yeah.
Uh, you have to go through so many hoops just to ask for the actual 60, 90 page
Mm,
policy.
document. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if it's not so much a lack of education as an active attempt to limit your education.
Something smells stinky.
Something does smell stinky.
Let's look at insurance. Why are people buying insurance, Eric?
They have to.
Because they need to be compliant, correct, right? So something as easy as, hey, this is just simply a compliance thing. For people to operate their vehicle on the roads in Illinois, they must carry insurance, right?
Right.
I also find that insurance is traditional. So what I mean by that is it gets passed down, right, through families like China or good wine or, whatever it is, but it is a traditional product, but it's a basic product of compliance. I think that that's important for the consumer to know because it's kind of a basic fundamental.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're 100% accurate. My dad had State Farm all his life.
Yep.
And multiple homeowners. He had multiple autos. He had everything with State Farm. And the fact of the matter is, when I was 16 years old and got my license, I had State Farm too, under him originally. But then when I went out on my own, I had State Farm for years, decades, until I realized that everybody else was shopping around and they were trading insurance companies like their underwear. All right. Um, we brought up the idea of insurers. There's a legal term, and that term is steering.
Mm,
Insurers tend to steer their insured in the direction of shops, collision centers that are in their preferred network.
mm,
They've got different words for it. Some people call them select shops. Some people call them preferred. But ultimately, that ends up being what we call, and in the industry, we use this three-letter acronym, a DRP shop. And DRP stands for a direct repair program or partnership. And basically, it's well. Let me ask you, what does that mean, and why do the insurers steer or guide us in that direction?
it's a pre-negotiated agreement, so everything is set in the favor of the insurance carrier, right from the get-go. But I'm a history guy, right? I'm a why guy. I need to, if I'm going to properly communicate with a consumer and educate them, advocate for them, and empower them to navigate what's going on when they um, arrive at a facility like Nylund's or a facility like Gold Coast, where we speak to different people than the normal repairer does.
Yeah.
And the normal repairer is speaking to the insurance carrier. We're speaking to the consumer.
Yeah, it's a conflict of interest. If you have a partnership with the insurer, the one who is supposed to be paying for the repair, and also the insured is your customer, who's going to win that battle?
Well, if you're in the position of um, being put into a direct repair facility, 100% it's the insured.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's talk about how we got there and why that is, right? And this goes back to the 40s. I mean, 20 years before you and I were both born. And, the insurance carrier was given the opportunity to escape from federal antitrust oversight. And they immediately, once that was given all to states oversight, they immediately started to deploy the preferred network to get the shop to buy into. Oh, look at, there's all this good money here and all these fine people are going to get referred to us. So you use the word steering. Okay.
Yeah.
I want you to know that steering is a very, very difficult thing to prove. So I'm going to use different language for you. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to use language that has to do with the policy, because if we're speaking to the consumer needs to know really some fundamentals and basics of their policy. And I want you to know that all automotive insurance products sold in the United States are what they call um, indemnification contracts, but they're right of choice contracts. Okay. So the consumer gets to choose where their vehicle is repaired. And instead of using the word steering, what the insurance carrier is doing is they're trying to influence right of choice. And I
Yes.
can tell you that, in my opinion, that's okay. Because once the consumer has made that choice, believe me, there is so much work that us as repairers that are 100% looking out for the consumer as it relates to the safe and proper repair of their car,
Yeah.
that if you're not looking out for the consumer and willing to educate them, the insurance carrier has um, tactics, plans, deployments, people, and they are going to do whatever they can to influence the right of choice to get the consumer into a atmosphere or arena that they control.
Let's just dip our toe, because we're not going to have time for the whole conversation. We may have to have you back and go swimming in the deep end. But let's just dip our toe in the why. You said you're a why guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What benefit does it make to the insurer if they can persuade you or influence you into one of their preferred shops? What do they stand to gain?
Reduce costs, because there's not going to be any engagement with the consumer, and the agreements are already in place to do things for a particular rate, to use particular parts, and to follow particular, possibly repair procedures that directly and I can only speak from my experience, Eric, they directly butt heads with what we're doing as a repairer that's looking out for the consumer. Look,
Yeah.
our job is safe, proper repairs, practicing manufacturers, processes, and procedures, making sure that our clients' expectations are met and that we're vested in limiting the diminished value of their car, right? You have that conversation with an insurance carrier, their freaking head's going to explode.
That's the truth.
It's the truth, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. So today, let's try to, right, because these are the conversations that I have in the moment
Yeah.
with the consumer, right? Because now they're already in it. They've already had an accident. They don't know they don't know the buts that are in their policy. So maybe we can get ahead of it, right? And I think it's a good thing to get ahead of it. So when the consumer arrives at any repair facility, that they already know the basic fundamentals of their policy, right? That
Yeah.
it's an indemnification contract, that they have the right of choice, that that they will be fully indemnified for their loss, less provisions of the policy, that
Yeah.
they possibly have a right to appraisal in their policy, which is a huge benefit
Yeah.
when they're dealing with a shop that's looking out for their best interests.
All right, Drew, you mentioned the buts. So here comes the section of this video where the but shows up. And we're spelling our word but, B-U-T. But it stinks to high heaven. And let's talk about some of those things. And for instance, some common but scenarios that show up. Drew, roll them off for us. Let's give us a couple of them.
Well, the three big ones are, aftermarket parts, but aftermarket parts, a consumer believes that full coverage um, excludes something like that. Um, but you're only covered up to this X amount. And here's the bad one, right? I mean, the but that shows up that says, yeah, but it's subject to our interpretation
Yeah.
of the required repair. And, you know, that's a hard one to navigate.
Policies read, you and we agree. And
Yeah.
when you pay your premium, that's a contract.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it's funny because, these contracts are legal documents, right? So they're filled with legalese, which is why a lot of people avoid them. Because
Right.
even if you read them, you really weren't going to understand them. But I can tell you there's a lot of you, YOU, and us, US.
Yep.
And you're right? You is the insured, and us is the insurer. And there's a lot of you've agreed with us.
Yeah. It goes so far as to say, you mentioned aftermarket parts.
Yeah.
I have comprehensive coverage on my 2019 Dodge Charger. And, you think comprehensive. Well, I know what that word means. They're going to cover everything, right? Not so much. In fact, you find out that in certain policies, and again, it all depends on the language of the policy, and you get to help choose that language, but you can only do it before you buy it, right?
Yes.
So, comprehensive. However, if in your policy it says we have the right, or us, the insurer has the right to put aftermarket parts or whatever on it, salvage parts from the junkyard,
Yeah.
and they can do that. And when we see something like that, all of a sudden the klaxon's going off in the back of my head going, wait a minute, I have comprehensive. What are you talking about? I never missed a month of my payments and I've been paying for decades. You got to give me an OEM part, but not unless you sign up for the OEM rider. And then sometimes even then it's a fight.
Yeah, agreed. And look, the popular insurance carriers, Eric, the ones that we all know about, and they flood the television with their great advertising.
Right.
They're all what they call straight line insurance policies, so there are no addendums to them. And I could tell you in Chicagoland, you know, there's four major insurers that own, our market. So what I mean by that is, high 80 percentile of all the people that roll through our door are really insured by four companies. Now, understand that Illinois is the home of Allstate and the home of State Farm.
Yes.
So, you know, certainly number one in Chicagoland as State Farm, because this is the home of State Farm. And
Yeah.
I'm not here to, take shots at insurance carriers. I'm not anti-insurance, even though people have certainly pointed that finger towards me.
Sure.
What I am is pro customer, and again, that's why I'm saying you know, Robert and we speak to different people,
Yeah.
and therefore we're different. But it's only because we're looking out for the consumer and we care about the consumer, and
Yeah.
we care about the other people that are on the road too. Because remember that if you're in a car that's not repaired correctly and it was done because of maybe some things that are being dictated by someone that shouldn't,
In other words, the insurer.
the insurer,
Yeah.
how does a consumer know if they already lack knowledge of maybe who they're insured by?
Right.
I mean, think about that for a minute. I mean, that that's dangerous. I have two kids. They both live well, not anymore, but my son still lives in the city where there's 7 million people driving around on the road, right?
Right.
Um, I worry about them as it relates to. I also have a DRP shop that's 900 feet away from me, 900 feet. So I can see right into their building and I can see the kind of parts that they're bringing in. And I can see, how they stage vehicles, outside.
Yeah.
I don't go prying inside of these facilities, but if they're going to stick them right in the street, I can see what's going on. And um, that worries me as it relates to number one, the occupant of that vehicle. But heaven forbid that, they slam into my kid
Yeah.
or your kid or someone that, I love and care about. It's I think that you can see it's something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
And it worries me.
You mentioned that, between you and Robert, you talk to different people, but there's not even a hint of daylight between the two of you when it comes to our position
Mm.
on the importance for following OEM procedures, for following or for using OEM parts, and to doing the right job the first time.
Mm.
And it is always a fight. Let's offer our viewers, if you're still here with us this far into the video, thank you for being here. We're so grateful. We'd love it if you'd click that subscribe button and the thumbs up button, hit the notify bell. That lets you know when we're going to be dropping another video that's going to be helpful for you. Speaking of helpful, Drew, let's give some action steps for our viewers. If you're just learning about the different buts in your insurance policy, and there's a lot of them, check the show notes in the description box below. I'll give you links to a bunch of other resources, several of the videos that we've already talked about, many of these things, diminished value, and all the DRP stuff, all that stuff is covered. But what are some action steps that our viewers can take right now, Drew, to eliminate or at least minimize the impact of the buts in their insurance policies?
Number one, understand your policy. Number one, read the full policy, not just the declaration page. The declaration page is there because it's easy, it's understandable, and it does not get into the limitations. So therefore, no questions are being asked.
Right.
Okay. So understand your policy. Ask your agent, ask your broker. Matter of fact, I would suggest that if neither one of those things, so if your product isn't sold through one of those things, you understand that you then have no one advocating for you on the insurance side.
Right.
So number one, understand your policy. Number two, know your rights. As I said, everything, in the 40s got away from federal oversight and now it's state oversight. So states are a little bit different.
Yeah.
But there are, in the state of Illinois, there are great consumer protection, litigation that's written, not litigation, but legislation. I apologize. Legislation that's written to protect consumers against improper claims practices. And I'll give you one, right? Just real quick.
Sure.
91950 in the state of Illinois requires that the insurance carrier provides a written explanation of exclusion, limitation, definition of policy if there is a shortfall in settlement, and that they must hook you up with the Department of Insurance. That is a requirement. The problem is that very few people know about this requirement. And I mean on the repairer side, because who's going to educate the consumer of these consumer protections against an insurer? You think it's going to be the insurance company?
Nope.
Of course not. It's not. So
it's not going to be the shop. It's not going to be the shop if they're in partnership with the insurance company.
100%, or by partnership, 100%. So third, stand your ground, folks. Again, once you're knowledgeable of your policy, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. Look, if you find a repairer like Nylund, okay, and you're insured with a very popular insurance carrier, most likely there's going to be a lot of strife. Okay, so if you were aware that there's no language in your insurance policy regarding networks, and your insurer was telling you, take your car to this shop over here, and you're saying, well, no, I want to go to Gold Coast Auto Body over there, okay? And I know that I have a right of choice contract. Now, if you'd like to expand a little bit about your preferred shops, I'm more than willing to listen. But here's what I can tell you. I'm aware of what my policy states, and there's no language about these networks.
Right.
So how is it that I can carry a right of choice contract, but you're trying to get me into one of your network shops? Can you explain the why behind that? Right. So again, if we can get in front of that, then maybe it lessens the strife. I'm not telling you that the strife's going to go away.
Right.
The strife is not going to go away, but it may lessen the strife. Right.
You make a good point there, and you also talk a little bit about documentation. Here at Nylund's, we copy our guests on every interaction between us and the insurer.
Same here.
Rob likes to say it this way: the insurer has one job, and that is to pay for the repair. The repairer has one job, and that is to execute the proper repair.
Mhm.
So with that being the case, documentation is big, and building a relationship. Right? You talk about planning ahead. Talk a little more about that.
Regularly review, preventative maintenance, right? Always be checking what your insurance policy states, because I want you to know they can change it.
Yes.
And in some states, they don't need to let you know. I want you to know I live in one of them.
Yeah.
I just attended a town hall meeting here in Chicago in early December that was about insurance premiums, right? Because people feel like they're being discriminated against, right? And again, look, folks, your insurance company is a financial institution. Okay. So if you're unaware of this, the first thing that they're looking at when they look at you as a potential policyholder is your FICO score. Um, I don't know if you call that discrimination, but you might. If here in the state of Illinois, the insurer wants to change their policy or raise your rate, there's no oversight here for that. So I could wake up tomorrow and my premium could escalate $1,000 and nobody needs to tell me about it. And my insurer, they might remove the right to appraisal out of my policy. And there's nothing telling them that they have to let me as the policyholder know about this. And,
Yeah.
and that sounds crazy, but it's true. There's one other state too, Eric, and you know of it. It's Wyoming. Um, it's the other state where there's no restrictions for them to do these kinds of behaviors. So stay in front of it, right? Regularly check what's going on in your policy. Again, that's why I think that either an agent or a broker is important, because then you can communicate with them. They can advocate for you. They can understand what it is exactly that you're looking for. Look, I understand. I'm a 60-year-old man. I'm well insured, right? So I believe in insurance. This is going to sound corny. We all need insurance to navigate our lives in America. We need to have it.
Yeah.
I just recently executed a new policy for long-term disability. um, just in case. I'm a healthy guy. I do my best to keep myself healthy, but right, you never know.
Yeah.
Um, so, but when I execute those policies, um, internally, I'm saying, like, my self-talk, I'm saying, boy, I hope I never have to use this thing.
Sure. Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Insurance is just that. It's a crapshoot and a hope and a prayer against the worst from happening. But when the worst does happen, you kind of need to you should expect what you negotiated. And if you didn't negotiate it, if you didn't know, if you just went in and said, "I just need the cheapest," oh, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, yeah. The cheapest is not. I would say it's not always the best, but I think I'm going to change that. The cheapest is never the best.
It's
Uh,
not.
yeah,
And so the only thing I would say to that is as long as the consumer is educated about what they're buying, then they will know what the outcome will look like, right? So if they're buying cheap insurance, if they're understanding of what they're buying, then they know that the outcome most likely will either not be what they expected, or more importantly, what they expected,
yeah, yeah,
right? So, and then again, I think that if we're thinking outside the box, I think it's a good idea for people to build a relationship with a qualified repairer
yeah. Before you need one.
before you need one.
Yeah, yeah.
Preventative
I
maintenance.
I agree with you 100%. Listen, let's tie this whole thing up and put a bow on it, folks. The fact of the matter is, you don't know what you don't know until you know what you don't know,
Ooh.
right? And hopefully, this has given you a number of different points of things to check in your policy. Check your limits. Here at the Airing of Grievances, we on a regular occasion have the time to talk about your rental car policy, right? And we always say get the longest term that you're allowed in your insurance policy. You might pay a couple of extra dollars more, but not a lot of extra dollars more. I don't know, maybe, $60 a year, something like that. I'm not sure how much it's going to be in your state. Check with your agent. But these days, cars are so advanced, so technologically dependent upon so many services. You might get hit in the back end of a bumper, but you have no idea what that does to all the different sensors and things that are going on in the technology of cars. Your car might be at the shop for longer than the 10 or 15 days that you think that you need a rental car. And in many cases, I don't know about you guys out there at Gold Coast, but here at Nylund's, your car might be here for longer than 30 days. Uh, and much of that is just back and forth fighting with the insurer saying this is what the proper repairs call for. And the insurer saying, yeah, we're not going to pay for that. Um, so
You only know what you know until you know what you don't know.
absolutely. Viewers, listen, you need to take control of your own policy. And that means you need to ask for the full document, not the declarations page. You need to read that. If you have any questions about it, I'm 100% certain that you can call us here at Nylund's, and you could probably reach out to Drew and say, I got a question. What does this mean? Because there's a lot of big words in there. And so make sure that you know what you're dealing with. And I want to invite you to share your own experiences. Have you ever been railroad steered, persuaded to go to a shop that was preferred by your insurer? And now you know that when that happens, that only benefits the insurer. It almost never benefits you. They may promise you that it's going to come out faster. They may promise you that they can get the job done and just move you through. And you don't have to worry about any of the notifications or delays or anything like that. But the reason there's no notifications or delays is because the shop cannot protest what the insurer dictates for the repair. Uh,
They might tell you, Eric, that if you don't take your car to our preferred shop, that we won't guarantee the repairs.
yeah,
How about that?
yeah, yeah,
And because the consumer is uneducated and they're trusting the carrier to guide them in the right direction,
yeah.
they lose common sense.
Right.
Think about it for a moment. If an insurer says to you, we won't guarantee the repair.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this. If there's a problem with the repair, they're going to one spot, and that's the repairer.
That's
And
right.
I can also tell you this, that it's the repairer that's performing the job. It's the repairer that's purchasing the parts. It's the repairer that's putting those parts on the car. Tell me how an insurance carrier can guarantee something they ain't buying and they ain't selling.
Yeah. No, it's brilliantly stated. And as we have discussed many times on this channel, if push comes to shove and it goes to court, the insurer goes,
Mm.
we just pay.
Even if you have one of those agreements,
Yeah,
even if you have one of those agreements, yeah.
that's right.
Look, this is great for the consumer. Okay, understand that a repairer has no legal obligation to an insurer, and an insurer has no legal obligation to a repairer.
Yeah,
Yet, the two of them typically negotiate the price to repair your car. What
Wow.
I learned through RTA, or right to appraisal, is once the two non-obligated parties are removed, it's like a magic bean is planted and people are truly indemnified for their loss based on the limitations of their policy. It's amazing.
We've used that word indemnify or indemnification a number of times in this episode, and I just
Yes.
want to just give it a shout out for clarity for the people
Yep.
who may not be familiar with that word. It simply means to make you whole.
Yep.
You
Put you
know,
back in pre-loss condition.
pre-loss condition. Those are three words that you should become well acquainted with. All right, Drew. Man, I'll tell you what, there's a ton of stuff that we covered here. Drew, you have been truly gold for this video and for our audience. Do us a favor, if you will, please. Tell us a little bit about Gold Coast Auto. Where can we find you online? And is there a phone number that we can reach out and call if necessary?
100%. So Gold Coast Auto Body is located in Chicago, Illinois. We are in the Gold Coast. We're about 2.5 miles off of Lake Michigan on a little island called Goose Island. And our phone number is 312-525-8763. And our website is www.goldcoastautobody.com. Please check us out. There's some great information on our website. There's two fantastic videos on our website. One of them is called Copay, and one of them is called How Do You Buy Insurance? And I recommend them both. And they are not long videos. I'm not asking anybody to waste their time, but they are very informative.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. Listen, you have really helped us, and thank you for sitting in for Rob and addressing this huge topic. Um, we're so grateful for you. So I'm going to say thank you to you, the viewer, for watching this episode. If you found anything of value at all, go ahead and please give us the thumbs up. Share this with people that you think need to know this information. If you've got children of driving age, that's probably a great place to start. And just share the link. It's quick, it's easy, it's free, and we're super thankful that you're here. On behalf of Rob Grieve and myself, Nylund's Collision Center, and the Airing of Grievances, um, we say thanks for watching, and we will catch you next Saturday at 9:30 a.m. in the Mountain Standard Time.